And welcome in, folks, to Open Mic Night. I am your host, Noah Taluki, and we have a full slate for you today. Lions signing Adrian Peterson. We'll get more into that discussion later on and how it boosts the running game. Also, a Taylor Decker extension from last week. We'll get more into how that affects the Lions as well. Plus, one player that I thought the Lions were going to sign to their 53-man roster, another one that I was surprised at. We'll look at both of those players as well. And to cap it off, I want to talk about the first week of NFL football with the Chicago Bears coming to Ford Field. We'll give you a little game preview on that for next Sunday's matchup. But thanks again, folks, for tuning in. MHSA football is finally back in Michigan, and that's going to be exciting as well. Just adds to all the football being back. Fun fact, I actually called some high school football last week over here in Ohio. Cleveland Heights High School called their game. Fun fact, the Kelsey brothers, Jason Kelsey of the Eagles and Travis Kelsey of the Chiefs, they both attended Cleveland Heights High School, and also Mel Tucker, Michigan State head football coach, also attended Cleveland Heights. So it was awesome that they have some great alumni there, and it was fun to actually see live football for the first time in months, and even with limited fans and all that, it was still really, really cool to see it and be a part of. I had a couple of fantasy football drafts as well. I've drafted some pretty good players, I thought. Patrick Mahomes in one league. I drafted Matthew Stafford in another league, and I took a pick on Kerryon Johnson as well. I think he's going to be explosive, of course, in this Lions offense if he can stay healthy. So I had some fun in that, and of course, golfing, and golfed pretty well. My friend and I, we did a little scramble together against another one of our friends, and we beat him by 7 strokes. So it was definitely a good day out on the golf course out here. But nonetheless, let's get right into it. Lions. So Sunday, Lions sign Adrian Peterson, 35-year-old running back that used to kill the Lions back in the day when he was on the Vikings. All those runs left and right. He was breaking 70, 80-yard runs against us, and now he is in the Honolulu blue and silver. I'll just say this. So Sunday morning, I wake up. I kind of slept in because it's Sunday morning. I like to sleep in a little bit. And I get a text from my friend. I look at my phone when I wake up. I get a text from my friend that says, Lions sign Adrian Peterson. And I thought, wait a minute, that's a joke, right? The Lions didn't just sign Adrian Peterson. So I wanted to make sure it was correct. So I logged on to ESPN, and I wanted to see if this was for real. And sure enough, it was for real. And I thought, wait a minute. The Redskins just released Adrian Peterson a couple days ago, and now the Lions have him? First thought that went through my mind was, wow. When did the Lions ever do this? When did they ever get somebody with that high of prestige, like a future Hall of Fame running back? And granted, he's past his prime. But Adrian Peterson, he has shown he could still be productive in this league. Last season, 900 rushing yards for the Redskins, and he was pretty much their primary back as well in year 14. But another thing you got to remember about Adrian Peterson was that there were seasons that he was hurt, and he didn't play the entire year. And there was that whole thing where he was suspended for the whole year and all that. So in reality, if you kind of look at his career, I know he's entering year number 14. But in reality, if you look at it, it's more like he's more on like season 11, season 12 in terms of him not seeing game action because of his suspensions and hurt and all that. So he might be a little more fresher than a lot of us realize. Now, I know he's 35. I know the age is caught up or could play a factor. But this is a Hall of Fame running back. This is one of the greatest running backs in NFL history. And he's going to step right in, and I think he's going to be a leader in that locker room. He's going to be showing the younger guys. By the way, the Lions don't have a single running back over the age of 23. How about that? He is the oldest running back in that running back room by 12 years. Unbelievable. He's going to be in there. He's going to be mentoring these younger guys. He is going to be in a mentorship role, but he's also going to be one of those running backs, I think, that can really bolster this running game for the Lions. and he can help take this running game to the next level. And I think this clearly represents that Matt Patricia wants to go with a running back by committee, meaning that a bunch of guys have a piece in this offense. It's not just set on one feature back. Obviously, we see that with Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift. And DeAndre Swift, he's been dealing with some injury issues in training camp. So we don't even know if he'll be 100% for the season opener against the Bears on Sunday. So we'll have to see. Of course, I was surprised by it, but I immediately thought that this is definitely going to help the Lions. It does not hurt them at all, I don't think. This isn't the Lions signing LeGarrette Blount a couple years ago, who did almost nothing here when he was a Lion. He did so much stuff with New England and Tampa Bay before that. No, this is Adrian Peterson, who's coming off a very good year for his age. Obviously not that 2,000-yard rusher anymore, but somebody that can still contribute offensively and who can be a leader in the locker room. It's definitely going to help the Lions, and I'm very excited to see how well this running game can take off. Because Matt Patricia, he has said it in press conferences before. He has prided himself on the running game, and he said playoff teams, if you look at the playoff teams in the NFL, they all seem to know how to run the ball at the right time. They seem to get hot running the football when they get deeper into the postseason. You got to know how to run the football. And he keeps stressing that, and I think this is just one step closer to that goal. Now, do the Lions have some superb offensive line with all kinds of Pro Bowlers and all pros, kind of like the Dallas Cowboys do? No, I don't think so. But I think that the offensive line can take a step forward and can help pave the way for some of these running backs in the backfield for the Lions. So I think the success of the running backs has to do with how well the offensive line plays. But on top of that, adding that experience and that depth at running back, along with Bo Scarborough in that mix, and Ty Johnson, also I think will help the Lions tremendously. So kudos to Bob Quinn for making that move, signing a legend in Adrian Peterson. Some other Lions news before we start the season here. Lions and Taylor Decker agreed to a 5-year, $70 million contract extension, pretty much locking him up for a while here in Detroit. Now, I will say this. I haven't really been a huge fan of Taylor Decker since he arrived. I think he's like an average left tackle. I don't really think he's in that elite status. And I've seen his man just obliterate Matthew Stafford on a couple of occasions in the past, and I thought, wow, how is Stafford still in this game just because of how hard he got hit? And that was Taylor Decker's man. Last season, Decker allowed 7 sacks. That's a lot for a left tackle. A left tackle shouldn't be allowing 7 sacks. So that's why I've always thought he's average. But obviously, it's definitely interesting how the Lions see him as a huge part of the future of this team. So when that news was announced, I texted our good friend Matt Derry, who was on our first episode we ever did here on Open Mic Night. And I said, wow, it's unbelievable that they paid Taylor Decker that amount of money for being so average, basically. And he made a good point in my text. He says, remember, Riley Reiff, former Lion, who re-resurrected his career in Minnesota, he made $12 million a year in Minnesota. And I thought, oh, interesting there. I totally forgot about that. I didn't think of it like that when it came to the dollars. But, and we've seen it really heightened in the last 10 years when it comes to the importance of the left tackle, really by that book, The Blind Side, and the whole movie that came with it, how important the left tackle is in the game of football. And why on a lot of teams, the left tackle is the second highest paid player behind the quarterback. So definitely important. Taylor Decker having a good year. I think he could have a good year this year because this seems like a different offensive line here than in years past. I think Bob Quinn did a good job this offseason of drafting the right players and signing the right free agents. I'm not necessarily completely worried about Taylor Decker. I think he'll have a good year, but I'm not saying he's going to be like some elite player. I think he's just still average. Obviously, you have Joe Dahl, who has minimal starting experience. Has started here and there, but never as a full-time player at the left guard. I think the Lions, what they could do is they could substitute Logan Stenberg in maybe later on in the season. I think maybe they want to get him some reps, the 4th rounder from Kentucky. it'll be interesting to see how Stenberg fits into the mix. And then I think Frank Ragnow is going to take a huge step forward this year. I think he could possibly be in that Pro Bowl conversation at the center position. He's going to be the catalyst. He'll be the leader of this Lions front five. And then you have Jonah Jackson, the right guard, who's projected to be starting, the rookie, who, let's face it, rookie offensive linemen, they take their hits, they take their struggles in their rookie seasons. So it'll be interesting to see how Jonah Jackson will respond, hopefully in that starting position, because I think that was a great third-round pick by Bob Quinn and somebody that they really want to build around. And then also Vaitai, the right tackle, who they paid a lot of money for in the offseason from the Eagles, who hadn't had a whole lot of starting experience, but they must see something in him because that Eagles offensive line was very good, and a lot of great players there. I mean, he was behind the likes of All-Pros Jason Peters and Lane Johnson. I mean, these are guys that will probably be in the Hall of Fame someday. So definitely a lot that he's learned from in Philly, and hopefully that'll transition over to how he plays on the offensive line this year. All right, so earlier I wanted to get to a couple players. One player I was surprised with that made that 53-man roster that was announced a few days ago, and another player that I thought would be on the roster. So that player I was a little surprised at was in the tight ends room, and that's Hunter Bryant, the rookie undrafted free agent from Washington. There were some reports out there during draft time that he was one of the best tight ends available in the entire draft, but a lot of teams were wary, seemingly because of his knee injuries that he had in college, just could never really stay healthy. But when healthy, he showed a lot of athleticism and the ability to catch the football, something that the Lions now hopefully will like in their tight ends, because we haven't seen a whole lot of that in the last few years, really in the time since Stafford has been the quarterback. But definitely a guy that could contribute offensively if he can stay healthy, and now there's reports that he may even end up on the IR with a hamstring injury. So that's definitely not good to hear, especially from an undrafted free agent that made the 53-man roster. But I will admit, I was a little bit surprised because I thought Isaac Nauta was going to take that third tight end position role just like last season. So the Lions opting to carry, 3 tight ends, but they signed Nauta to the practice squad and Hunter Bryant to the 53-man roster. A little bit surprised, obviously. I think Nauta is more of a blocking tight end than he is a receiving threat, whereas Bryant is the opposite around. I think he's definitely more of a receiving threat than a blocker. But still interesting to see that move. And with that, Hunter Bryant, by many, was considered the best undrafted free agent prospect in all of the NFL. So the Lions definitely took a little bit of a risk, not a lot of risk, but about a little bit in terms of the health and all that, but definitely a player that has a lot of upside if he can stay healthy. We'll see how much he contributes and if his hamstring will heal up in time to contribute later on in the season. And one player that I thought the Lions were definitely going to keep, and it could have changed because of the whole Adrian Peterson situation, a running back that I was really looking forward to seeing this season, Jason Huntley, the rookie running back, 5th-round pick from New Mexico State. First thing when I think of when I hear the name Jason Huntley is how athletic he is. I mean, this is a guy who ran a 4.37 40-yard dash and had a 10-foot, 11-inch broad jump. I mean, this guy is athletic. And definitely a player who could have contributed for the Lions this season, a speedster, who I think had more of a future with kicks and punt returns than he did as a running back, but still, somebody maybe like a J.D. McKissick where you could kind of throw in and be a safety valve, maybe on the passing plays that can kind of sneak up on defenses. Also a player that you can line up in the slot. In his career at New Mexico State, he had over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns on 134 receptions. That's pretty impressive. And had 5 touchdowns on kick returns in his career in college. However, I think the Lions are more comfortable with Jamal Agnew taking that kick return and punt return spot just because of his presence as an all-pro back in 2017. And he had his glimpses last season, and of course when he had that big kick return for a touchdown in the win over the Eagles last year. But definitely had his ups and downs, fumbled some kickoffs and all that, which made me upset as a Lions fan watching that for sure. But the Lions released Jason Huntley. And it seems like their plan was to see, because in the NFL, when you release somebody, they have to clear waivers, and then you can sign them to your practice squad. I think what the Lions were trying to do was they were trying to release him and then see if they could sign him on the practice squad. I think they thought he might clear waivers, but he actually didn't. The Philadelphia Eagles claimed him, and now he is an Eagle down in Philadelphia. So unfortunately does not get a shot with the Lions, but a player that I really thought was going to make the roster, even with Peterson being signed. Now, did it hurt his chance of making the 53-man roster when Adrian Peterson was signed? Of course it did. But, however, I thought he was going to get a shot over Ty Johnson. I thought Ty Johnson was going to be the odd man out when it came to the running back room, even when they signed Peterson. But seemingly the Lions like Ty Johnson more than they do Jason Huntley. And they're both speedsters, and they both have kick and punt return potential, but they are opting to go for the Big Ten native of in Maryland as a college instead of the Sun Belt Conference in New Mexico State. So interesting decision there by the Lions, but for the most part, I was pretty satisfied with the Lions and how they crafted the 53-man roster. I didn't think David Blau would make the roster. I had a feeling he would be on the practice squad, and indeed he was. I think that gives the Lions a lot more room to work with who that extra guy would be, which I think is smart. There's no reason to carry 3 quarterbacks on the active roster, especially with Matthew Stafford, who's had a track record of staying healthy for the most part outside of last season. And Chase Daniel, I think they have enough faith in him to be the number 2 guy as well. So a couple interesting moves by the Lions, but not much when it came to the 53-man roster. And, of course, the big day, Sunday, September 13th at 1 p.m. at Ford Field. The Lions' first game of the entire season. No preseason this year. All regular season games against the Bears, week 1. No fans, of course. It's going to be a very, very different atmosphere. The Lions, speaking of that, the Lions were practicing in Ford Field last week with some simulated crowd noise that I think they're going to play possibly during the game. And they were practicing all the warm-up routines and what they're going to go through because they don't have any of that. They couldn't really practice that in a preseason game at all, so they're going to have to practice every part of the game day that they can to help simulate that to practice for when they actually play a real game. That's interesting. DetroitLions.com, they had some audio from Matt Patricia out there. It sounded really good. I really liked what he had to say out there from that audio at that practice. Very interesting to listen to, by the way. So definitely some different circumstances, but I do not see why the Lions cannot come out of Sunday with a 1-0 record. I mean, of course, the Lions lost to the Bears twice last season, once on Thanksgiving, both to Mitchell Trubisky, who, by the way, threw 6 touchdowns and 1 interception against the Lions last season. Definitely 2 of his best games he had all season. But interesting how the Bears are going to be starting Trubisky instead of Nick Foles. I mean, I always thought Mitch Trubisky would start, but there were others out there that were saying that Foles should be starting. A lot of money being given to him and all that, so why not start him? I never thought Nick Foles was a starting quarterback. I always thought he was backup at best. I know he won the Super Bowl and all that, but some teams believe in him as a starter, and definitely the Bears, I think, signed him to have some sort of insurance in case Trubisky struggles. But we know how good the Chicago defense can be, of course, with Khalil Mack, one of the best in the game, who has torched the Lions in recent memory, and have some pretty good defensive backs. Kyle Fuller and Eddie Jackson, who had that pick 6 against the Lions a couple years ago that silenced the crowd and pretty much ended any hope of winning that game. So they definitely have some pieces on that defense that the Lions definitely have to be cognizant of. But offensively, I don't think the Bears are really anything special. I mean, you look at the receivers on the outside. I mean, there's Allen Robinson. But, I mean, Anthony Miller, I think they signed Ted Ginn Jr. I mean, they're not the best at the skill position as well. And then it seems like they're not really set on like one particular running back either. It's a combination of David Montgomery, Tariq Cohen, and a couple other guys in the mix. So I don't think it might take a couple games for the Bears to find their identity offensively. But you always got to watch out for Mitchell Trubisky, 6 touchdowns and 1 pick against the Lions. I mean, he has had his days against the Lions in his career. So it's definitely going to be a game to watch out for, but it's going to be different. Obviously, no crowd and no fans to cheer him on, at least in person. I definitely think the Lions can win this one, but it may be close. And I would not be surprised, and this goes for everybody in the league, a lot of teams. This isn't just for the Lions or the Bears or anything like that. We could see some sloppy football these first couple weeks. Like, we could see some low-scoring affairs. I don't think we're going to be seeing, like, any Rams and Chiefs shootouts for the first couple weeks of the season from that Monday Night Football game from a couple years ago. I think it's going to take some teams a couple games to get into rhythm because there was no preseason, and hitting in practice obviously is a lot different than hitting an opponent in a game and having that stadium atmosphere and all that. So it's definitely going to be an adjustment. I think the successful teams in these first couple weeks will be the ones that know how to adjust the best. But as far as it looks on paper, I think the Lions should be able to rush the ball well against the Bears. And I know they have that. They have some nice pieces on that front seven, obviously Khalil Mack and all that, but if they're able to establish their ground game and are able to throw the ball to their weapons that are highly coveted, like Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, maybe even work some Quintez Cephas in there if Danny Amendola needs a couple breathers here and there, then I think the Lions should be able to win this game. And then defensively, I mean, I don't think the Bears' offense is that good on paper, as I said before, but I think for the Lions, this is definitely an improved defense. I think they'll be blitzing more often with Corey Unlin calling the plays as defensive coordinator than they have in the past with Paul Pasqualoni. Also, their cornerbacks, their defensive backfield is a lot better than last season, I believe, especially with Jeff Okudah now in the mix. And on the other side, Desmond Trufant, the new signee, Justin Coleman and Amani Arurarie getting in the mix as well. If they're able to blitz and get to Mitchell Trubisky, then we will see a 1 in the win column for the Lions to start things off. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. Then week 2, the Lions will go to Green Bay, starting off with 2 divisional games. It'll be very, very interesting to see. And I don't want to look too far ahead, but week 2 in Lambeau, I wonder how different that's going to be with no fans at Lambeau Field yelling that "Go Pack, go." That'll be interesting. But at the time of this recording, the Lions are favored by 3 points, according to Vegas. I don't look at Vegas stuff a whole lot, but it's always interesting just to see how favored each team is. So Detroit -3 against the Bears, 1 o'clock on Fox at Ford Field. I wonder if they're going to do the pregame introductions and have the pump-up video and have the fire and all that for pregame introductions. I'm curious to see if that'll actually happen. I wonder how much the Ford Field staff is going to make it seem like a game day atmosphere. I'm really curious to see how it's going to be because obviously in preseason, there was no preseason, so we didn't get to see any of this and how the new NFL is going to adapt to this. So it'll be really interesting. I'm really, really looking forward to it. I love football. NFL is my favorite sport, and I always love when they play the Bears because my man, Mitchell Trubisky, I actually, fun fact, I actually go to school with both of his brothers here at John Carroll. So I've been able to meet Mitchell a couple of times. I've got to meet his family a couple of times here and there, and just a great, great family. And, you know, as much as people root against Mitchell Trubisky sometimes, I root for him. You know, obviously when he doesn't play the Lions, but definitely just as a human being, I definitely root for him for sure. So I always like it when they meet up in Detroit. And I saw him over the winter actually when he came to a basketball game because his brother plays on the basketball team here. And I just said, Mitchell, how come you always have to play well against us, the Lions? He was laughing so hard when I said that, and it was just a funny little moment. But yeah, he always seems to play really, really well against the Lions. So it'll be very interesting to see how that works out. But thanks again for tuning in. I thought we were going to have a guest this week, but we're hoping for next week, hoping a former Lions player will be joining us. We'll keep that under wraps until hopefully we can get him on. So it'll be interesting. I really, really hope we can make this work. And I also am thinking about a couple other guests we can have on throughout the season that could really give us some in-depth look at the Lions and hopefully the Tigers even. I know we didn't talk a whole lot about them. Maybe in a couple future episodes we're going to highlight some Tigers because right now, they're in that wild card race and they're closing in. So hopefully they'll be able to make that and give us something to cheer for here in Detroit. It's been a long time coming since we've seen my two favorite teams play, the Tigers and the Lions, in the same season, obviously. So it'll be awesome to see that in downtown Detroit. Even though it won't be the same, we'll still be able to take it all in and just be thankful for the fact that football is back. So thanks again for tuning in, folks. And we'll talk next week about hopefully a Lions victory over the Chicago Bears. Thanks again, folks. You're listening to Open Mic Night.